Hi, my name's Kathy. Welcome. Today I'm going to be doing a face of makeup, and I'm also going to be talking about a murderer named Charlie Brandt. So let's get started. The first thing I do is I'm going to put some lotion on my face. All right. So Charlie Brandt was born on February 23rd, 1957 in Fort Wayne, Indiana. He was born to his mother and father. Their names are Herbert, and I don't know how to say his mom's name, but the last name was Brandt. They were immigrants from Germany. He also had a sister, Angela, and he had two younger sisters, but I didn't find very much information about them. So, the first thing we really know about Charlie is that he was shy and he was a little bit awkward, but he was gentle, and as far as everyone knew, he was just quiet and gentle and would never hurt anybody, wouldn't yell, wouldn't, do anything violent. But later, when he's 13, he went into his parents' bedroom and he grabbed his father's handgun and he walked into the bathroom where his father was shaving, and his mother, who, by the way, was 8 months pregnant, she was taking a bath. He went in, he shot his dad in the back, his dad fell to the ground, and then he turned to his mother, who pleaded and screamed, and he killed her. She died instantly, and so did the baby. He then went on to his sister's bedroom, and he tried to shoot her, but the gun would not shoot. And that's when he apparently snapped out of it and was pleading to his sister to help him, like, I just killed mom and dad, what do I do? And she was scared, obviously, so she tried to talk very calmly with him and told him that he needed to go and get blankets for the two younger sisters. So off he went, and she booked it out of there. But he noticed that she was leaving, so he went after her. So, anyways, fast forward, the police are called, they come, and he's taken in, but he's only 13 years old. So, what are you going to do? So he was taken in to a psychiatric hospital, and that's where he stayed for 1 year. And then he was released. There was no criminal charges, which to me is kind of strange. I know he's only 13, but he had an intent to kill his entire family. So it's a little bit bad. So after all of this, after he's released and everything like that, the family decides to move to Florida. So they up and leave, and this is in 1972. So they moved to Florida. They're there for 1 year. His father at this point remarries, and he and the two sisters, they go back to Indiana. But Charlie and Angela stay behind with their grandparents. So I don't really know why that is. I don't have any other information about that. So in 1984, Charlie receives a degree in electronics and became a radar specialist for aerospace in Astor, which is in Florida. So he's an engineer. So he is a smart guy. So he's working, pursuing his future and spending time with his sister and his sister's husband. So his sister's husband His name is Jim. His name is Jim Graves. And he's been hanging out with Charlie and thinks that Charlie is a mild-mannered, nice fellow, just really mellow and quiet. And Charlie likes to fish and do outdoorsy type things, and just really laid back, and Jim likes that because that's kind of how Jim is too. But one day early in the marriage to Angela, Jim comes home and Angela is just beside herself and says that she really needs to talk to Jim about something. So Jim's like, okay, let's talk. And she tells him the whole story about how Charlie tried to take out his entire family when he was 13. And so Jim was freaked out by that. But he, hung out with Charlie, and he thought, well, maybe this was just a one-time thing. Charlie seems totally normal, and I don't see him doing anything crazy again. And they're spending lots of time together. So Jim actually knows this acquaintance named Terry. And he actually introduces her full name is Teresa Helfrich. I think that's how you say it. I may have said it wrong. Sorry. So Terry and Charlie meet, and they totally fall in love. And Jim had no idea that would happen, but that's what happened. And so in 1986, after dating for a while, they get married, Charlie and Terry. So they get married, and before the wedding, Angela and Jim both tell Charlie that he really needs to tell Terry about what happened. And it's never really said if Charlie does have that conversation with her. But later on, there's different things that are said that tell us that, okay, she does know what happened at some point. I'm not sure if it was before they got married or if it was after they got married, but she definitely knew that something happened. Later on, you'll understand. So they get married, and in this wedding, it's really, really small, and none of Charlie's family members are invited. So I guess because he doesn't want somebody saying like, hey, maybe don't marry this guy because he's a complete psycho. But anyways, they get married, and as far as everyone can tell, Charlie loves Terry, and Terry loves Charlie. I mean, they just are so sweet to each other, and they just seem so in love. Like, people would be jealous of them because of how in love they seemed. They couldn't stay away from each other, and they're always having a great time. And Terry was kind of like the outgoing one. So that's kind of how relationships are, right? Like opposites. So Charlie was the one that was quiet in the background, just kind of observing, making people uncomfortable. No, I'm just kidding, but kind of not. He did kind of make people a little uncomfortable, but not to the point where they're like, he's a killer. So he did seem to have some kind of infatuation with Terry's niece, Michelle. He had some kind of fixation on her. She was really beautiful. She was younger, and he had a thing for her. He had a crush on her or something. He referred to her as a Victoria's Secret or a Victoria's Secret angel. So he had a thing for her, and he had a thing for Victoria's Secret anyways, because later we find out that he would get Victoria's Secret magazines sent to his house under his name, not under Terry's name, which is gross. So anyways, time goes on, and the marriage seems great. Everything seems great. But with Jim and Angela, things don't work out for them. So they end up splitting up. And Jim is, bummed out about it. Of course, like, no breakup is easy. But he goes and he spends some time with Charlie because they've become pretty close at this point. And so they go fishing because that's what they do together. And they're just, shooting the breeze and, talking guy talk, talking about the breakup and everything. And Charlie says, if you want to get even, you should go kill somebody and cut their heart out. And mind you, Jim knows about his past. But Jim is like, let's change the subject. Let's not talk about that. Like, what are you saying? And then blew it off. And I can't say how I would be because I've never been in this situation, but I can't help but think, why didn't Jim think a little more about that? Like, what? Instead of like, oh, let's change the subject. Maybe I'm being too harsh or something, but I just thought it was a little bit like, that's all you said was let's change the subject. But maybe that's just me. So I forgot to mention that in 1989 Terry and Charlie got a house, I think they purchased the home. Anyways, it was a beach house on Big Pine Key, which is in the Florida Keys. So probably a really beautiful place, really nice, lots of fishing. And Charlie had a place where he could like clean his fish and do all of that. And Terry really just was like a free spirit and loved to have fun. And she didn't really question Charlie when he would disappear and be gone for hours or maybe even days, sometimes overnight, which if that was me, I feel like I would question it. But maybe that's just me. But she let him do his thing and, live his life. And there was a conversation between Terry and Jim, and I don't know if Charlie was there for that conversation. I'm not quite sure. But Jim was like, hey, are you guys going to plan on having kids? And Terry said, no, we decided not to have kids considering. So at that point, we know that she knows. She knows what happened to Charlie's mother, who, side note, Charlie was really close to his mom. He was what you would call a mama's boy, I guess. So that's pretty scary to think that he was really, really close with his mom. He loved her. And he killed her, and her unborn child. To me, that's not some small thing that happens. It just raises a lot of questions for me. It's really hot in here. Sorry, my cheeks are turning red. So anyways, moving forward, Terry starts to question things. She starts to be concerned. Charlie's staying out longer. She just feels very uneasy. And there was actually a victim who, so in July of 1989, this was 4 blocks away from their home. So there was a victim found in the water, floating in the water. Some fishermen found her, and she was dead, and she was decapitated, and her heart was removed. So she was dismembered. And her name was Sherry Parisho. I think that's how you say her last name, but she lived on the water. She lived She lived on a boat and she minded her own business. And it's really sad that this is what had to happen to her. It's terrible. And in fact, the boat that she would use to get from place to place, that boat was turned upside down and was used as a table to cut her apart. So I thought that was really sad. I'm so sorry to Sherry. I hope that she is resting in peace. It's just never happy to hear about somebody dying, especially in that way, and it's just really sad. But this was in the news, and this was in the news close by. So Terry was like concerned because things are starting like puzzle pieces falling into place. And so Terry finally comes to Jim and says, I'm really worried about this whole situation. I think that Charlie might have done this. And Jim's like, what? Nah. What? A woman got her head cut off and her heart cut out, and you think it could have been Charlie? Nah. So what does Jim do? I don't mean to demonize Jim. I think that he's probably a good guy. But he went straight to Charlie and told him that Terry thought that it was Charlie. And I thought that was like crazy. Like, why would you do that? And of course, Charlie's like, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I would never do that. What? I can't believe that. Who knows the conversation that Charlie had with Terry? If he did have a conversation with her about it, I don't know. That's never said. But I mean, come on, it's 4 blocks from their house. And the history and weird things, like before that, he was gone for a long time. And she even busted him in the middle of the night down in his fish cleaning area. She caught him there like at nighttime, in the middle of the night, covered in blood. And so she questioned him. She's like, what the heck is going on here? It's the middle of the night. You're covered in blood. Like, what is going on? And he was like, oh, calm down, calm down. It's fine. I was fishing, because people fish at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, and how is Terry supposed to be? Like, she loves this man, but then she's conflicted because what if he is a monster? And in her heart of hearts, I think that she knew that he has that dark side. And she just, I can't really imagine being in her position, because that feeling of conflict, because you love the person. And when you love somebody, you don't want to think the worst of them, of course. So fast forward to Miami, 1995. Another victim is found. Oof, that's pretty dark. Another victim is found, and she is found on the side of a highway, so pretty easy to find. And this poor woman, who was a prostitute, still a person, okay? So she was a prostitute, but furthermore, she was a person. She was a human. She was found, surprise, surprise, decapitated and heart removed. And she was wrapped up in blankets and plastic wrap, and it was really meticulous. It was like a present. It was like wrapped up so neatly. And there was dog hair found on the blankets of that. So make note of that. Dog hair. By the way, testing dog hair is not an easy task as far as like forensic science. And this is in 1995. So they're not even where we're at now. So what they had on her was dog hair, and her name was Darlene Toller. Okay, Darlene Toller, that was her name, and she was taken out, and I think that you can probably put 2 and 2 together, and it was Charlie. And God only knows how many times that he did this, because now we're seeing that he's traveling. So he's traveling away from his home to do what he's doing, so that he's creating some distance there. So he's gotten smarter, he's learning. Good for him. Obviously, I'm kidding. So all this stuff is going on. And meanwhile, there's a hurricane a-coming. Okay, there's a hurricane coming to the Florida Keys. And it's predicted to be so bad that they are evacuating everybody. So Charlie and Terry board up their house, and they're like, gosh, we got to go somewhere. So Terry's niece, Michelle, is like, come stay with me. So she lives far enough away to where it is a safe zone, and she's family, and yeah, so they're like, cool, we got a place to stay. I'm sure Charlie was like, yes, because, you know, he had like a thing for her. So they pack everything up, pack up their house, and we're talking about like the most meticulous boarding up of a house. Every window, the boards that were cut out were perfection, which makes sense because Charlie's an engineer, and engineers are, they need things to be in order in a specific way. So even the door, like, so Tuesday, September 2nd, this is 2004 now. So we are now in 2004. And the hurricane comes through. It's Hurricane Ivan. And so they pack up their stuff and head on over to Michelle's house. And Michelle is expecting them and everything. So she has like her house is all ready. And she called up a couple of her girlfriends and told them what was going on. Like, hey, my aunt and uncle are coming over, and you guys should come over. Like, she wanted her friends to come over and hang out too. I think that that's what the conversation was. I think that she was like, hey, you know, you guys should come over and like hang out with us. But for whatever reason, if I'm correct about that conversation, the friends did not come over. I should explain that I'm priming my eyes now for the eyeshadow. I haven't explained anything about my face, but anyways. So they show up, they're hanging out, having a grand old time. And so they're eating, they're drinking. Charlie makes some food. He fries up some fish, and they're drinking and drinking. Michelle has like a hot tub. They're hot tubbing and just having a grand time. And so Michelle's friends know what's going on. And Michelle's mom knows too, because she was really close with her mom. And her mom and she would talk to her mom like almost every single day. So her mom knew that like Terry was going to be there and everything. And so Michelle really stayed in touch with the people that she loved. It was odd for her to not talk to them or answer her phone or whatever have you. So next day, so we would be on what, Wednesday the 3rd. Everyone's, you know, her friends are calling like, hey, how'd everything go? Mom's calling, hey, how's Aunt Terry? They probably don't talk like that, but I do. No one can get a hold of Michelle. And no one can get a hold of Terry either. So that's weird. That's so out of character for Michelle that her friends are already, they have some red flags going up. Like, what the heck's going on? This is not normal. They're calling and like, one of her friends even said that she called and said, "You better call me back. I'm afraid that you're dead," which is a really unfortunate message that was left, because I'm sure you can guess what's coming up. So 2 days pass now, and everyone has had it. Like, I'm going over there, okay? I'm going over. What the heck's going on? I've been calling and calling. This is freaking weird, okay? So they go over, the two girlfriends. Her mom lives in another town, so her mom's not there right away, but her friends are close by, so her friends head over, and they notice that Charlie's car is there. And so that's kind of weird, because at this point the hurricane has already passed, and so why is Charlie and Terry still there? I mean, I guess it's not completely crazy because they're family and everything, but there was no reason for them to still be there. So that was kind of weird. And then they're noticing newspapers, mail that hasn't been collected, stuff like that. So that's really weird. And one of her girlfriends has a key to the house. So she's like, I'm going to go in, because they've knocked and no one answered, of course. So she tries the key, and for some reason, the key doesn't work. And Michelle's mom later goes on to say that she believes that was divine intervention. And so they're trying to find another way to get in. And so they're kind of circling around the house, and they notice that in the garage, all the garage lights are on, which is strange. That's not normal. So, and there's a lot of windows, so they can look in. And they do look in, and what they see is Charlie had hanged himself from the rafters. So that's what they see, which I could only imagine would be shocking, horrifying, and they're freaking out at this point. They call the police, and the police come, and they bust in, they bust on into the house because there's a dead man hanging in the garage. So this is a serious situation. So they bust on in there. Where'd I get this? Over here. Okay. So they bust on in there, and the girlfriends stay outside of the house. And the police officers go in, and then they're filing back out, gasping, throwing up. So obviously it was not a good scene. What they found when they went in, they found Terry sitting on the couch, and she was slumped over, and she had been stabbed to death. She had been stabbed 7 times. So what the officers or investigators came to as a conclusion was that it was probably quick. It was probably just a fast, hopefully Terry died quickly is what I'm trying to say, okay? But Michelle, I don't think that Michelle got off that easy. And I don't have a lot of detail about what exactly happened to her while she was still alive. But I assume because of Charlie's major obsession with her, that he probably took his time. He probably didn't want it to end quickly. And that's just my assumption. I wasn't there, thank God, and I don't really know. But I can only imagine. And what the officers found were Michelle's head. So she was decapitated, and her heart was removed. And it just looked like he had really taken his time. He had cleaned up a little bit, and he had her clothing a specific way. And so he really just took his time. So I assume that he killed Terry really quickly. And then he finally got his ultimate wish, which was to have Michelle all to himself. So it was really gruesome. It was, for seasoned investigators, it was hard to see. It was hard to watch. And obviously for all of the family, the friends and everything, everyone was just devastated. And so at this point, they head over to Charlie and Terry's house, and they see how meticulously it was boarded up and everything. And inside of the house, they find that Charlie had an extensive library of books that are on the human anatomy. He was an engineer, not a doctor, okay? He wasn't an artist. He was an engineer. So it seemed a little bit strange that he had, it wasn't like 1 or 2 books. It was an extensive library of books that he had. And he also had a poster on the back of his bedroom door. So that's something that he and Terry are looking at every night when their bedroom door is closed. And it's a detailed human anatomy. And it was kind of weird because it was obviously a woman. And you see some muscle, some skeleton, but she has very feminine hair, and it's up in a bun and kind of wispy. So I have never seen a poster like that before until diving into this, and the investigators said the same thing, that they had never seen anything like that. So I thought that was interesting. So investigators are now thinking, okay, this is probably a serial killer. Because of the fact that he was so meticulous, and it just did not look like a first time thing. And so after looking through the house, they're looking for anything that they can find. And they did find some stuff. They found Terry's journal, which was not very detailed, which I was kind of disappointed about, and I'm sure that they were too. And I'm not sure why. Maybe she just wasn't the type of person to write in a journal a lot. But she did write down dates, which is pretty good. And she did write down such and such date. Charlie didn't come home, was out all night, ! So that's a little bit helpful. But Charlie was really, like I said, really meticulous, really had everything in order. And he kept track of his gas mileage to the T. So they were able to connect a couple of murders to him because he was in the exact area at the exact time. And obviously the MO of the murders is really unique. So it's not every day that you have a homicide and it's a decapitation and heart removed. So it's pretty unique. How many victims did Charlie have? We don't really know. Between 4 and 6. I mean, obviously we do know about his mom and the unborn baby and his wife and his wife's niece. And then we do know about the other 2 women that I mentioned. Oh gosh. So that much we do know. Who knows? He traveled a lot. He was really well traveled. So he was all over the place. And I find with serial killers, with those travels, that is an opportunity. That's what they see. Serial killers, they think about killing all the time. And so it's all planning and thinking things out, an opportunity. Where am I going to have a good spot? Where, things like that. That type of thought process. Here I'm just adding on some highlight at the brow bone right underneath of my eyebrow and onto my cheekbones as well. Sometimes it's kind of hard for me to talk at the same time as doing these things. While I'm adding finishing touches to my look, let me ask you a few questions. In the span of 33 years, how many people do you think fell victim to Charlie? And also, when Charlie was 13, he only spent 1 year in a psychiatric hospital. But if he would have been imprisoned, some lives could have been saved. What do you think we could have done differently to stop all of this? The highlight that I'm using here is a highlighter by Ofra and Nikki Tutorials in Glazed Donut. The eyelid primer that I used is Urban Decay Eyeshadow Primer Potion in Eden. And the eyeshadow palette that I used today was the White Peach palette by Too Faced. And the eyeliner that I used is by Essence. I was going to do my hair, but then I didn't. And I didn't do my lips because, I don't know, I usually don't. But anyways, that's the story of Charlie Brandt. And I heard about this case a long time ago. And for some reason, it's always really stuck with me. A lot of cases do. I study a lot of cases, as many cases as I can. So tell me what you think. I hope you like the look, and I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day.